Hello and welcome to Monday's episode of a Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host Craig Fowler, and on this occasion to look back over the Premiership weekend, it is Euan Taylor. Hello Euan.
Hello Craig, how are you?
Yeah, I'm alright. Certainly it's good for a change to see your team actually win a game of football in the league. And actually play well, because we won one game of football so far this season in Europe, but we're fucking shocking during that match. So to actually play well, score 4 goals, keep a clean sheet, and deservedly get 3 points. I mean, wow.
Yeah, I can't. I didn't have any of those things to enjoy, I'm afraid. As we'll come on to. Yeah, wasn't great. Wasn't great.
No, and we'll get to both of those games, but there is, I was going to say one match, there's probably a couple of matches that we should start with first, looking back at the Scottish Premiership weekend. I was tempted to go for the match that had, I mean, they both had late drama, but the match that they definitely had, they had the most late drama, which was Dundee United Hibs. However, even accounting for what we were like on the terrace, felt a wee bit too contrarian, a bit too hipstery. We should probably go with a match involving the two teams that beforehand had a 100% record, and after the match, both are still undefeated, and that was Celtic against Aberdeen at Celtic Park. Celtic going into a commanding 2-0 lead in the first half with goals from Ryo Hatate and Kyogo Furuhashi. And you thought, well, that's Aberdeen's bubble well and truly burst. All their fans saying, oh, nobody believes in us. The media just hate us. They're just wanting us to fail. You thought, well, I mean, obviously that was pish, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, the media was right. You aren't good enough to compete with Celtic for a title. And that's probably still the case. However, they did fight back. Fair play to them. They refused to lay down and die, and they came roaring back in the second half. Goals from Esther Sockler and Graham Shinney. But that does not even tell the full story. Aberdeen thought that they had a third goal when a Slobodan Rubezic header was deflected off of Duke, went in the back of net, but rightly ruled out for handball. Then at the other end, Adam Ida had the ball in the back of the net, but as he was putting the ball into the net, Alistair Johnson was clearly fouling Dimitar Mitov. So again, that was correctly called off. And then with the very last kick of the game, I've actually forgotten who it was. Was it Johnson himself?
Johnson, yeah.
It was Johnson who had the shot. Duke with a clearance on the goal line and celebrated like he'd scored a goal because it was as good as a goal. And the usual Celtic conspiracy theorists on Twitter claiming that it's the most clear handball you've ever seen. There is not really, I don't know if there's a proper definitive angle, but I think it's quite clear from the angle of the touchline, like behind Duke, so you'd see Duke's back. I think it's quite clear that the ball doesn't get to his arm, that it hits something, likely his thigh, before it gets there. It looks like a handball because he brings his hand away from his body back into his body at the same time as the ball arrives. And on first view, and I was like, well, he's just punched that. That's going to be a penalty. But when you slow down the replays, I'm sure the ball doesn't actually get there. It hits his inner thigh first and kind of bounces up off his body. And so, again, right decision in that instance for me. And all in all, quite a dramatic contest for the two teams at the top of the table.
Yeah. I mean, game of the season. It's probably the weekend of the season actually so far.
Oh yeah, there's fucking loads to get to on this show.
Yes, so it was apart from myself and others of my persuasion, it was a fantastic weekend of football. And I mean, the whole game. I wouldn't have said it was a game of two halves because I think Celtic were dominant in the first half, really. And then dominant at the end of the game as well. It was just briefly, obviously, Aberdeen carried a threat, and I suppose not to blow our own trumpet, but we did for our Patreon subscribers. We did last week. Yourself and I did a podcast, What to Watch, about the weekend's upcoming action. And one of the things that you said. So I'll blow your trumpet if you're not willing to blow your own, Craig. But you said that you thought Aberdeen would be best placed if they played a team which sort of carried the threat in the counter. So you said Duke should probably start, and Sockler should start, and lo and behold, I mean, I think if you're going to be hypercritical of Jimmy Talleen, probably got his team selection wrong, actually. In the first half, and it didn't quite work. It does speak to, I think, Aberdeen having quite a lot of strength and depth and different ways to play, which is a good thing for the season as a whole. Because the team that started that game, if they were playing a team, Kilmarnock at home, for example, that would probably be the personnel you'd want to go with. But at Parkhead, it probably just wasn't quite what they should have gone with, and you had obviously changed at half time, took Nisbet off for Sockler, and Duke came on for Clarkson, I think it was.
Yes.
And James McGrath moved into the middle of the park rather than
which was another key factor of it, because McGrath was just playing constant through balls. He was doing that in the first half, but he was a little bit, because he was out on the left. What he would typically do would cut in and play a kind of like long kind of reverse pass for Kiskinen going down the right, which did threaten Celtic, but not quite as it just didn't give him as much room to see the whole pitch and to play passes wherever it kind of demanded it when he was moved into the number 10 position. And he was a number 10, but he was kind of obviously dropping deeper to kind of help his teammates. But that meant that when he got the ball, there was just more of the pitch in which to thread these quite often perfectly weighted through balls for his teammates to run onto.
The pass for the first soccer goal, unbelievable. Pass of the season so far. It's the backspin on it, which makes it particularly aesthetically pleasing for me. Just a lovely pass, and Sockler did great. Scoring a 1-on-1, which is not his forte necessarily, but he managed it on that occasion. So yeah, he's McGrath's having a very good season, and that really suited. And it shows, I think, considering Aberdeen at some point have Papagay to come back into that attack, it does. I mean, they do have a lot of weapons on the break now. The only thing with that is that obviously the better they do week to week, the less often they'll be able to play like that.
I think this weekend there'll be a very interesting test of them with exactly regards to that. They're playing Dundee United at home. Dundee United away from home so far this season have set themselves up quite often in a low block because they don't really have much pace in their back line, so that it makes sense that they would do that, and it's worked very well for them. They're undefeated away from home so far this season. Their game plan will be don't let Aberdeen in behind us, and if they manage to do that, Aberdeen have still obviously got the capabilities. McGrath is someone himself who could pick a lock. Clarkson as well. They have other players. But it will be an interesting test of their quality when somebody comes to Pittodrie and sets their stall out like that.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting again for Talleen. Like, does he? It feels hypercritical to say, does he get it wrong again for a guy who's undefeated in Scottish football and just drawn literally one game and won all the other ones? But it's like, will he go with the team that ended the game at Parkhead and did really well, which might actually be the wrong thing for next week? And maybe you should start Nisbet and you should start McGrath and Clarkson. So that would be it's obviously a nice problem for him to have. And Aberdeen generally, I think, and this is again maybe it's hypercritical, I think Aberdeen, if Aberdeen want to win the league, they're going to have to play a lot better than they are right now, performance-wise, because I think they are carrying quite a bit of luck at the moment in terms. I mean, in game state play, comes into all this obviously, but I think they've lost. Well, the last 5 games, if you look at the sort of the XG. Again, this is nerd nonsense alert here, but if you look at the last 5 games, this is according to FotMob, I think. So, like the game of the weekend, they lost in inverted commas by like 2.03. So that's actually potentially could turn into a hammering. Normally in XG if you lose by that many, but they obviously managed to get a draw out of that, and a lot of that would have been right at the end of the game, and in injury time when there was a lot of balls obviously just flashing across the box. The previous game against Hearts, they lost again on XG 1.29, which again is that should be a pretty comprehensive loss normally, and they didn't.
And they were helped out by George Grant forgetting he'd been booked.
Yes, and Vargas forgetting how to play football when he was staring goal. But even the games before that, they lost by 0.8, which is obviously that's a very close game. Then they won the game before that 0.6, so very close. And then the one again before that, they lost.
Basically, they're winning and staying undefeated in this case, but they're doing it by small margins. And eventually, over the course of a campaign, those small margins will eventually, because you will. Even if Aberdeen fans listening to this might bristle at the word luck for what they've done so far, even if you don't want to call it luck, eventually you will have bad luck.
Yes.
They've not really had much bad luck that they've had to overcome so far this season. And when you're having matches like you've been saying recently, where in terms of what they were expected to score across the course of the game, some bad luck goes against you, then you're not going to win those matches.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not to say that the Aberdeen rather couldn't improve their underlying performance levels. I mean, I think there's signs there that maybe they could, and it's a new manager, it's a new system. Actually, maybe when it beds in, it'll be even better. But I would expect, even if that happens, I would actually expect
and confidence just raises and raises.
Exactly.
Rises and rises.
Yes, exactly. So it could become, it could get its own momentum, and the fact, this might be the worst Aberdeen play all season. But the results haven't, but then they've gone through, with pretty much unscathed in terms of results. So who knows? I mean, I certainly think they are very much on course to finish in the top two at the moment. And there's a game, not this midweek, but next, which will have a large bearing on that, I suspect. But yeah, I mean, that is 100% on. Craig Anderson, I don't know if he tweeted this out, but he came up with the stat that I think the last time a team won its first 7 games and didn't finish in the top 2 in the Scottish top tier was during the First World War. So, and I believe it was Rangers actually, I believe, that did that at that time. So, I mean, I think that's very much on. But whether a league challenge, I think, as I say, it would require either Celtic to regress significantly in their own performance levels, or Aberdeen to really hit their straps.
When you were giving me some credit earlier, when you were blowing my trumpet, I thought you were going to say that we talked about the fact that we needed that for Aberdeen to win this game or to get a result out of this game. It was going to be very difficult because off the back of an international break, and Celtic would have been known what they were facing. It was in a case of Aberdeen coming there as some kind of unknown, and then this Aberdeen team did get a result, but you know what I mean, like you maybe fancy them more to get something for the game. Celtic from the first half, I would actually say Aberdeen were maybe slightly the better side in the opening 10 minutes, but then Celtic kind of put their arm around their throat really and throttled the life out of them. Anytime Aberdeen tried to press out for the back, Celtic were right on top of them.
Yeah.
But then potentially, I think Celtic at 2-0 up maybe did do what we thought that they wouldn't do, which was kind of take Aberdeen for granted a little bit. I think the press wasn't quite as intense after that. It wasn't quite as high up for a lot of it. Aberdeen did change the way they were playing. They stopped trying so much to play it from the back. When they got the ball down in midfield, they didn't panic and they played it through the lines well. But instead of just trying to play it from meat-off to centre-back and then try to move up the pitch that way, they abandoned that because it wasn't working. It was just they were like I say, they were getting the life throttled out of them. But you even see it with the Sockler goal. It's the combination you don't want when you're trying to play like a high press. You got your defensive line up very far, but your forwards are not really that engaged, and they're just kind of being quite languid and passive. And it's a very, very nicely worked goal. And obviously, we've said the pass from McGrath is superb, but it did for a team doing it at Celtic Park. It looked a bit easy. And I think Celtic kind of in the second half didn't quite come out as focused as they were in the opening period. And it's a shame the Duke goal was disallowed because the sequence of things that happened for Aberdeen to get the opportunity in the first place was quite something. Because you had Celtic with the ball in Aberdeen's half, and Austin Trusty, who so far Not really sure about him.
Yeah, he looks every inch the player that Michael Beale identified as the answer to Rangers' defensive problems last summer so far. So, yeah.
So he had the ball. He gets kind of panicked at turning around and making a pass backwards. He does so. McGregor has to then go retrieve it as it's really kind of a pass to nowhere. And I think it was even deflected slightly. McGregor then goes, knocks it back to Schmeichel, who then kind of can't decide what he wants to do on the ball. He's closed down by Socker, who blocks the shot. Sorry, blocks a clearance. Then kind of flicks it back into the penalty area. There's nobody there, but then Scales gets it. And then even him, like initially, he's like, want to take time with the ball. And I think it's Duke that maybe like sneaks up behind him. And he just has to like lump it out for a throw in. Like just a straight kick out for a throw in. And then from the throw in, Kuhn gives away a very needless foul. I was like, at that point, because obviously the game was at 2 each at this point, I was like, Aberdeen are totally in their heads. And Celtic, I think, got a bit of a lift from the Aberdeen goal being disallowed. I think that refocused them, and then they were kind of the only team that really kind of looked like scoring from that point forward. But obviously they couldn't manage to do it. And Aberdeen, well, there was a couple of instances of dreadful defending. Gavin Malloy for the second goal. In general, Aberdeen were very good at defending their penalty area.
Yes, yeah. It was more when they got sort of stretched out a bit in the first half. That was when they started to, when they looked a bit ropey, and it sort of, I think that Celtic's press was very good, and it also exposed the fact that Mitov, while he's a great shot stopper, that's if he has a flaw in his game, it's certainly his feet. He's just not very, very good with the ball at his feet. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it was just the adjustments that Tilleen made. I say you probably get more credit for getting it wrong in the first place and then changing it than you do if you just got it right in the first place. But they had a lot more. They were able to play through the lines a lot quicker, and they had the reason to do it in the second half, and it worked really well. And then obviously it was like the Alamo at the end, but beyond the, I suppose, Johnson, that was a sort of throwback to 1950s football when you could just barge a player over the line. I saw some Celtic fans annoyed that Nick Walsh mimed the wrong offence, which was he was pushed forward rather than I don't know why you expected Nick Walsh to mime backing in. So that would be a weird one. But
improv classes for all Scottish football referees. They need to get better at miming.
Yes, it really annoys people when they mime the wrong thing. So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those, as I say, Aberdeen on the balance of chances, and if you look at XG and all that, then they were very fortunate to come away with a draw. But actually, the game state is, of course, it's going to be like that. And when you get 10 minutes of injury time at the end of a game, which also will give Celtic a lift.
I don't think that was entirely undeserved, though, because there was the pause for the VAR check for the Duke one. It didn't last too long. But the main thing was that Aberdeen, and I mean, this is not me criticising, this is fair play, this is what you should do when you're going away from home to a team that's better than you, much more fancied than you to win the game. There was a lot of Aberdeen players going down and taking this thing out of things. And which, like I say, fair play. And also I loved, this was really boiling the piss of the Celtic fans, Nielsen. A lot of Scott Brown-esque breaking up play files where it's like, it's not quite enough for a booking, but he knows exactly what he's doing there.
Yes. Maybe the signing of the summer so far in Scottish
certainly
football.
Up there.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've talked to him before. I think he's great.
He's been great, yeah. So, but no, so yes, we shall see how the title challenge goes. But I think if people weren't taking Aberdeen seriously before, they will now, and that will be a different challenge for Aberdeen, not in terms of the games against Rangers and Celtic, but it'll be your Dundee United's at home. That's going to be I mean, not that they haven't had games like that already, but I think that game has a feel of a really big one. I think it's on at 5:30 next Saturday. I think it's on. It's not. I don't know if it's on Premier possibly. Yeah,
it will be. Bit annoying because I've got a birthday party to go to next Saturday. I would really quite like to watch that, but that's just annoying.
So that'll be.
I'm with Celtic. Fuck this Premier Sports.
Just annoying. The games are on at the wrong times. But so that will be a test. I suppose that takes us on to the second game of the weekend.
Yes, yeah. Dundee United 3, Hibs 2.
What a game! What a laugh Hibs are.
It's incredible. It's actually incredible. Like, I'll set out for those who are unaware, because I always often get listeners saying that I live abroad and I'm not always sure what happened. So if you could just tell me exactly what happened this game, then we'll break down how Hibs managed to lose this one. Because other than being Hibs, I'm still not entirely certain. So Dundee United opened the scoring. Sam Dalby allegedly with the opener. I've watched it several times. I'm still not sure about that. I think it looks like an own goal.
Glenn Middleton turned into Gareth Bale for that goal. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he had a very good first half, very good first hour in general. But then O'Hara, who might have scored the own goal that gave the lead, scored at the other end. And Dwight Gale with his first goal for Hibs off the bench, putting Hibs 2-1 up. I watched this game. They were the better side. They deserved the lead. Had I been watching it live, and had it not been Hibs, I would have been thinking, well, I think the away side are going to win this one. But with Hibs, you never know. Joe Newell gets himself sent off, and then 2 goals in injury time. The first from Lucas Stevenson, and then Mishak. I'm just going to call him Mishak because that's what he's got in the back of his jersey, and I am not going to make it an attempt to pronounce that surname of his, but he scores in the 99th minute. Absolute scenes. The last kick of the game as well. It was funny watching it back on Wisecout. The effective time function, which cuts out all the stoppages, it just ends. As soon as the ball goes in the back of it, it just ends. That's it.
That's enough.
Joe, the game obviously turns on Joe Newell's red card. So, first 30 minutes or so, fairly even. I would say Hibs were slightly on top, but Dundee United had that threat. Glenn Middleton for like I say, the first hour, he was basically United. Other than a not bad defensive performance, he was United because they weren't really doing an awful lot else. There wasn't an impressive performance from the hosts. Dalby was okay up front, I would say. Decent enough. I think he offers a bit more than Van der Sande. I think Van der Sande technically is a better footballer, but Dalby's got more mobility, or it looks like he's got more of a goal threat than we've seen from Van der Sande so far this season. And he's got enough height that he can do the occasional winning a flick-on header or kind of hudding the ball up with his back to goal. I don't think he's particularly brilliant at either, but he could contribute enough to make the ball stick. But other than that, Miller-Thompson was quite poor on the right. It was no surprise he went off for Trapanovsky, who had a huge impact on the last 10 minutes or so. Even Will Ferry was getting forward to support Middleton well, but wasn't really doing enough himself. And there just wasn't really much else happening with United. Savage, however the hell you pronounce his name. I quite liked him in the centre of the park, but more in a sense that he kept things simple and kept possession and was good at picking up loose balls, but wasn't really doing anything to impact the game going forward. Babunski was in the starting 11. They didn't have either of the first choice centre midfielders, which would be Ross Docherty and Craig Sibbald. Babunski, again, there was so much expected of him, and he had such a good Premier Sports Cup campaign and looked good against against Dundee in the opening game of the season. But while he'd done some of the kind of the dirty side of the game maybe better than he's looked so far, on the ball he was quite crap, to be honest. And there was a point as well in the second period where it kind of broke to him and he had the chance to kind of launch his counter-attack, and he just kind of ran in semicircles, not really knowing what to do about it, and then fell over and conceded possession. So that kind of summed him up. So that was about United up until Newell's red card and then just throwing everything at it. That was United really for the entire game. Hibs, on the other hand, I think were generally fairly impressive without being brilliant. Joe Newell sells the jerseys, obviously, gets himself sent off. Without that, Hibs, at the very least, take a point, you'd have to think. But I thought he played really well other than that. He done what Joe Newell was kind of good at. He's good at finding space to either receive possession or to take the ball forward, make things happen. Was played quite directly, put a lot of balls in the penalty area, asking a lot of questions, playing a lot of forward passes. I thought on the left, Hoylett and Abita putting a terrific cross for the goal. They were looking quite dangerous, and even down the right, they struggled with Middleton defensively, but Cadden and Miller were getting forward to good effect. And defensively, Ekpiteta was winning just about everything in the air. I would say that Molotnikov was trying things that didn't quite come off, and Kukarevich was quite quiet. But the Hibs were certainly the more impressive of the two teams. And David Gray even made a tactical change, which I think worked very well, which helped bring them the second goal. Because he made a couple. There was a strange one well, it wasn't strange, but it was just a bit unusual in that he took off Miller at half time, which I understood because he was getting toasted by Middleton, and then put Cadden at right back, and then within 3 minutes he'd taken off Cadden and then put O'Hara to right back and brought in Jack Iredale. But I thought Iredale, apart from one moment we'll get to, was also very good, very composed with the ball, playing it out for the back. And then later in the half, he made the change that I spoke of. He went with was it a 3 he went with? I've kind of forgotten just now what he changed it to. Let me just check my notes once again. Yeah, he went a 3 at the back. He went with Boyle right wing back, with Obito on the other side, and he had Hoylett as the number 10. And you could kind of see it in the goal, and it was like this. It was once Gale came on, but you could see in a couple of opportunities leading up to that, is that change, we're going with the kind of 2 up top, Hoylett and behind. It just gave them a lot more kind of fluidity and freedom to roam around. And you can see that with the goal with Kukarevich going out to the left. And doing that frees up the space for Obito to put the ball into the penalty. It's a terrific cross, and Gale peels off to the back post. So a lot to like about Hibs' performance. But it's just Hibs. They just have to do it. It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, what is extremely Hibs, obviously, is their goalkeeper. I mean,
to be fair, I think the criticism for the equaliser is a wee bit harsh. Wow. I don't know what else he's supposed to do. He's at full stretch. You give that. Actually, do you know what you can criticise him for? Being a bit small for a goalie.
Yeah, well, yeah, he is that. I just think you don't flap it. You don't flap the ball back into the middle of the goal. That you just don't do that.
I don't know what else he could do in that situation because he is proper stretching for it. I think he just gets the end of his hand. I don't know if it's quite fingertips, like in the sense that you get a slight deflection on it, but I don't know how much more he can put on it to put it elsewhere. And you can't just leave it as a goalie in that scenario. I've yet to look at it back too closely to see.
I think he probably could have left it and it would have been better, I think.
But you can't do that as a keeper.
But you can, well, apparently not. I mean...
But undoubtedly is at fault for the winner. Undoubtedly.
Yeah. Where are you off to, sir? You just went for a wonder. And yeah, just a beautiful finish. That one of those that I don't think Michelle could... I mean, no one could do that. If you tried to practice it, it's just one of these, the ball's bouncing and you just hit it in a slightly strange way, and just an absolute beauty. But yeah, obviously not the sort of thing you would ever practice because it's just not normal for a goalkeeper to have given you an opportunity to score a goal like that, really. So yeah, I mean, and there were other defensive errors obviously within those 2 goals. I mean, Martin Boyle just fell over when I think Trapanovsky ran at him for the equaliser. It looks like obviously Martin Boyle used to sort of play as a wing back sometimes. I think that's a sign you can't do that anymore. He's definitely don't ever put him back there. So it's I feel like Hibs have probably got the worst results relative to the performances of anyone this season. I mean,
the Motherwell game was similar. Like watching the first half of that, and I think I said somewhere on the podcast, can't quite remember. I was like, yeah, any other team watching that, I'd be like, well, this home team are definitely going to win this. But because it was Hibs, I was like, how are they going to fuck this up?
Yeah, exactly. And lo and behold. And, Ibrox, they played very, very well. And you were basically just a missed penalty away from probably getting something from that game. So, yeah, you wonder if Hibs would have, I mean, will they have the courage of their convictions in David Gray? I mean, some of the board members obviously have been on record publicly as not being convinced with him in the first place. And, or do they
don't listen to them though.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. Will they try to? Well, will they make a change? I mean, again, if we go back to the Patreon episode we recorded, I thought this game could be the end for David Gray. And obviously when I saw the way it ended, I thought, yeah, that really could be. I think it probably would have been, and you thought that he'd get at least the derby. I presume, I mean, we're always beholden to events when you put a podcast out, but I think we probably would have heard by now if David Gray was going to be sacked, but you never know. But it looks like you get the derby, but I mean, it feels like, I mean, I would be amazed if he kept his job if Hibs lose the derby. Now, you could argue he should keep it because actually, the performances have been good and the results will turn, but it's just pretty much unheard of in Scottish football now, I think, for a manager to be given that time, especially when there isn't any career to sort of fall back on as evidence for Gray, which is unfortunate for him. Because I'm not convinced the problems that Hibs are experiencing are his fault at all, actually. I mean, you could probably, there will be games where he's made a decision which hasn't worked out, but generally, I actually think Hibs look quite good and things are transpiring against them. I mean, Gray probably has the least agency of any manager in Scottish football in the top flight, I would say, in terms of like control over the club. That's you never know, obviously, unless you're in it, but it appears that way to me because he's got a fairly obvious director of football. He would appear to be a bit overbearing from the outside, at least.
And he's got an owner that likes to sign players.
Yes. So I suspect Gray has very little input in who Hibs have signed, and some of the signings, they're not all bad, but you could certainly take issue with a few that are playing in key positions, such as the goalkeeper.
By the way, how bad must Jordan Smith be, their backup goalie?
Well, I think we might find out at the weekend, because I'm not sure you'd get to keep your place after that. So, if the touching tribute to Mark Berighetti, that was the sort of thing he used to get up to at Tannadice. So yeah, I feel a bit sorry for David Gray, and I think probably Hibs should stick with him, but especially. And I think it's the fact that Hearts won and won well at the weekend that just increases the pressure. I mean, it should have no bearing really, but it does. And if Hearts were to win next weekend, obviously at East Road, I think it just Gray's position becomes very difficult. And I don't know if the crowd would be demanding him sacked at this stage. Obviously, it's difficult given his sort of club legend status, and maybe it would just be. But I mean, I think there'd be protests, whether it would just be aimed at the club in general and Malky Mackay, and it'd be the easiest thing to do would be to get rid of Gray as like a sacrificial lamb. But yeah, you just it's very hard to see how he would survive the losing next weekend.
Right, let's move on to our next game and let's go to Rugby Park, shall we?
Yeah,
and let's go. Yes, the match took place on Sunday with Kilmarnock beating Rangers by 1-0, and that goal coming quite late on in the 87th minute through Marley Watkins. Euan. God, your team are a lot of shite.
We really are. Absolutely horrendous.
You're not even fun to watch. I mean, it's fun to watch you get beat in the end, but you're not even like... Rangers teams over recent years, when you were like finishing second quite a lot to Celtic, and even before then actually, even like Warburton and Kashinya and stuff, these were fun. Like, there was a bit of... Like, obviously there was a bit of chaos about it all as well, and that was obviously part of a huge part of the charm, but you actually played some decent football. Those Gerrard teams played decent football. They were good to watch. They would, implode every now and again, which... like I say, is also a benefit to that, but they actually were a good attacking football team that created chances, didn't score as many goals as the chances they often created, but they at least had a bit of verve about them, had something going forward at the very least. What is this? What was that? What was that on Sunday?
I mean, that is... I could just make noises at this point. It's absolutely brutal, and it's signing. I mean, it's a failure has many fathers in this case, And it's not just Clement. I mean, there's loads of things wrong with the club, but he's a big thing that's wrong. And I think it's completely deluded to not think that now. He still has a lot of support within the support, a surprising amount to me, which I don't really understand where that's coming from beyond winning the League Cup against an absolutely terrible Aberdeen team. It seems to be the only thing that people sort of point to is, oh, well, Beale would have lost that game. Like, I don't know if he would have, like, maybe, but like, I mean, it was a terrible team, and we only won 1-0. And I mean, a League Cup, I mean, who gives a fuck about that? Really, in the context of the whole regime. I mean, the results now are actually significantly worse than the Michael Beale's, in the league. The recruitment, has it been any better than Beale's, really? I don't think it has. And it's hard to see how the players have been signed to play together. Certainly in the system that they're being asked to play in. You could take issue with almost almost the whole thing, but just not creating anywhere near enough chances, which is that's a relatively new thing. I mean, Rangers' chance creation hasn't really been good enough, even going back to the sort of Gerrard era, and when that there was this successful season, that was based on the best defensive record in the history of UK football, I believe. So that rather than making loads and loads of chances, but I mean the chance creation just fallen through the floor. You've got three players behind a striker who, and we'll get on to him, who are all quite slow, quite physically deficient, and can be technically, I wouldn't put Tom Lawrence in this bracket necessarily, but can be technically good and can make things happen, but would probably need legs and other skill sets around them. They just look a bit similar, I think. But
yeah, and you don't really have a centre forward that fits that kind of model behind them either. Like, you want somebody like, if that's what you've got, then you want a forward who is kind of back to goal. Will have the name that's springing to my head is like Edgaris Jankauskas, like lovely feathery touch, but also being huge, so nobody can get around him, and he can just constantly link with these guys and play kind of help create the space, put the balls like around the corner, thread these intricate through passes. Dessers is a penalty box player that's got a bit of size about him.
Yes, the thing with Dessers' link up play reminds me of me at five-side football. Because my first touch is absolutely brutal, right? But I can sort of see, I could see a pass. So basically, I will always, if you put the ball into me, especially if we're going back to goal, I will just try to lay it off first time, every time. Because if I try and take it in, I'll just lose it, right? And that's what Dessers does. If you watch him, he almost never tries to take the ball in, hold it up, and then lay it off. He will sometimes surprisingly deft touches. Again, reminds me of myself at fives. And the way, and you're like, where did that come from? Like, he had one away at Malmo, for example, where it was the ball, I think it was like a lump up the park, and you're like at the halfway line, and he's sort of like on the volley, like really deft touch to Bayrami, who played at the Journey, and Journey missed the chance. And that was like, oh, that could work perfect. That could be, exactly, the sort of link up play that you want from a striker. But you realise that if that ball had been on the deck and not had any pace on it, and there hadn't been anyone like really near him that he could just touch it to, he wouldn't have known what to do. He would have tried to take it in and then either try and win a foul, which wasn't a foul, or lose the ball. And it's a huge problem when your striker can't hold up the ball, and that's where we are with Dessers. I mean, he's a competent enough footballer when he's got the ball under his control, and he's facing the goal, and sometimes his passing is actually surprisingly good. When he's facing the right direction, but if he's got a defender up his arse, he can't do anything other than lay off first time. But that requires someone to be really close to him, and I don't know if that's the thinking behind Lawrence playing so often, is that he's meant to be the guy that's right beside Dessers. But I don't think I've ever seen a player play for Rangers who's more careless with the ball than Tom Lawrence. He just, again, always tries to, I mean, maybe Scott Arfield was a bit like this actually, but always trying to do things like a million miles an hour and try passes that just aren't on. and it's infuriating watching the pair of them try and play football together. And but that seems to be the whole, the main, way that the Rangers are meant to attack. So absolutely brutal combination of footballers. Lack of pace, the lack of physicality when you bring Tavernier into it. The fact that every substitution made Rangers worse almost. I would say, apart from obviously my bet in the war, Conor Barron going off, which I was happy about. and you can say proper for Balogun, whatever, that's fine. But like Rangers is 0-0. Rangers are chasing a winner at the time, and to take off Czerny, he wasn't having a good game, but as a good left foot, has a bit of quality, and you bring on Casemiro, who I actually have liked the look of until this game. But you bring him on with like 10 minutes to go, so he can go to right back, so James Tavernier can play right wing. Sorry, like fair enough. See, if if that was the last 10 minutes against Leon and we're winning the game at the time, I would have understood it. In that circumstance, I don't have an idea what he was up to.
You can maybe even understand that they'd done it earlier because Tavernier was really hamstrung by the fact that Corey and Daba was like on him the entire game, and that was the thing. Like, stop kind of Tavernier's influence of getting Rangers up the park. So maybe let's try and get Tav further forward. I mean, I don't think it works. It's just it's very reductive, isn't it? It's like, oh, well, like Tavernier's good attacking, so he'll be good if we place him further forward. It's like, that's not really how it works. It's like, it doesn't work. It doesn't really work as it doesn't really work as a comparison anymore because he's crap wherever we play him. But it's kind of like Barry Mackay, and people saying, oh, just play him as number 10. No, that's not like, that's where he does his best work, but he has to operate from the wing coming in order to do that. Tavernier can make things happen in the right channel, on the right flank, and in the right channel inside the penalty area, but he needs to do it coming from deep. You can't do it starting in those positions. But I wonder whether Kelly, because we should probably talk about Kelly.
Yes, sorry, we haven't talked about him at all.
Yes, we spent 10 minutes talking about the team that got beat. But Daba was brilliant in terms of that job, in terms of getting just being positioned so high up to stop Tavernier from building Rangers attacks or to knock it forward and then to get forward himself. He must have won the ball back countless times. Him, Brad Lyons as well, in the centre of the park. And the front two as well, McInnes, they had Watkins sitting a bit deeper so that Watkins would basically make sure they weren't overrun in midfield, because it was obviously only the two of them with Lyons and Donnelly. And Kyle Vassell. I know he's played a few games already, but welcome to Scottish football, Robin Proper.
Yeah, the brutal game again. Yeah, I would say I don't think Kilmarnock were anywhere near as good as they have been in other games where they've been the firm, in the last 18 months, say. I don't think they didn't have to be. I mean, that was funny. Derek McInnes saying something along the lines of, the game looked exactly how I wanted it to look. It's like, that says a lot. Because one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. And that was how McInnes saw it panning out, and that's what he wanted. But I mean, fair play. It was, it did, obviously the tactical approach worked perfectly. I just didn't actually think Kelly played particularly well within that. Really, at least going forward. I mean, defensively they were very well organised, and Rangers really struggled to cause them any problems. So without the ball, yes, I thought Kilmarnock were very good. I didn't think they were as good as they can be with it, but yeah, obviously the goal is a comedy of errors. I think there's at least 3 massive mistakes within all that from 3 different players. But and that is a very McInnes sort of goal to try to construct. But yeah, as I say, I just didn't think on this occasion, compared to some, when they said they beat Celtic last season, and I thought Kelly were absolutely brilliant that day and fully, fully deserved to win and created a lot of chances. I suppose it was maybe similar actually to the first game of last season.
You're going back to remember I did say that Kelly have played better and they have played better before, because I can imagine a lot of Kelly fans like latching onto that, being the fact you're like, it was a shite goal, shite game. I'm not better at all. Fuck off.
All those things are true. Apart from that, I'm better though. So yeah, I mean, look, if you want to win games of football like that, Kilmarnock, then feel free. I wish I sincerely had that opinion, but no, it was, as I say, it was more to denigrate Rangers further, in that I just didn't think Kilmarnock had to be that good to win that game.
Yeah, I would agree.
They can actually play a lot better.
Yeah, you have seen, think of the 2 victories over Celtic last season at Rugby Park, and they definitely played better in both of those.
Yeah, it was maybe similar enough to actually to the first game of last season. And Rangers were completely toothless, and Kilmarnock, I didn't think. I think Kilmarnock even had less efforts to goal and stuff in that game, but managed to win. So yeah, it's a. I think again in that Patreon episode we did say I thought it was a really good game for Kilmarnock to have, having won the previous game, having 2 weeks more or less. They've got the whole. This sounds like another excuse. They've got a whole international break to prepare for it with the whole squad, but it seemed like I think Kilmarnock will just be back to being Kilmarnock now. Yeah,
aye. I think they're away to County next week. I'm just imagining that's going to be 3 wins for 3 now, and then it might not move them back at the top 6, but obviously it should take them closer to 4th. And yeah, I think it's kind of seeming like if Hearts don't have too big a mountain to climb, and then obviously if it's not a mirage the first week from Neil Critchley, then you got to fancy. I'd still look at Killie and say you're probably still the 4th best team in the league now that you've gotten over your European tiredness.
Yes. Yeah. So, so I think they'll be from strength to strength from here, I would imagine. Unlike Rangers.
Right, let's move on to our next game, and let's hold the phone on Hearts right now, and let's go to a match between. This is how big a weekend this has been. This game, which I think in a lot of weeks we'll maybe be kicking off the podcast, because it's between the 2 teams that everyone fancied to finish in the bottom 2 this season, but it's 4th because there's just so much happening this past weekend, and that is St Johnstone 3, Ross County 0. Bedouin Kimpioka with 2 goals in the first half, 1 in the 16th minute, the other right in the stroke of half time. They came either side of Elijah Campbell's red card. Ross County were then reduced to 9 men in the second period when Charlie Telfer was sent off about mere seconds after he'd come on the park. And then Mackenzie Kirk got his first top flight goal deep into injury time. And all in all, not very much of a competitive game. The red card obviously helped, but I've watched 5 games in full from this weekend, and I managed to catch the first 31 minutes of this one. I basically turned it off, or I ran out of time when the red card took place. But I thought, well, by that point, I have a decent idea of how this game is going to go anyway. I mean, first of all, you should probably say the red card. Jesus, I mean, what are you doing? And even after he just had a weird game in general for the half hour that I saw of Campbell. There was another moment after he'd been booked where the ball kind of rolled away from him, and he kind of lunged at it slightly. And I was like, that's not even it wasn't a foul, but it was just one of those challenges where you're on a booking. That is a daft thing to do. And I was like, and you compound that by getting sent off anyway. You're not learned your lesson. And he had another moment where he tried to do this flick, high up in St Johnstone's half when they were on their attack, and he just didn't really make much connection with the ball at all. And I was like, your seed was just up your arse this entire game for whatever reason.
Yeah, very poor performance, and I can't be the only person that found out that Charlie Telfer was at Ross County by seeing they'd been sent off after seconds. I'd completely missed, I'd passed me by that he was at Ross County.
I knew they'd signed him, but I'd forgotten he was there. not really seen him. So I was like, oh yeah, Charlie Telfer. But I must say that there's not really much to say about County because of the red card happening so quickly into the game. I would say that I thought their midfield was maybe a little bit too lacking in quality. Like Chilvers didn't even get on. Greaves didn't even get on in this one. And that's probably second half kind of damage limitation. I'm sure that even if they just had 11 men on the park, even if there were 2 goals down, those 2 guys would have been introduced to try and get them back into the game. But the starting 11 with Allardyce coming back in and Randall, it just meant Randall had to be a lot more attacking than I think you ever really want Conor Randall to be. He also taking set pieces and took like a horrendous corner at one point. Like one of those ones that doesn't beat the first man, but it's like it almost barely leaves the ground. Like one of those ones.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there wasn't really... They defended a bit poorly. That was kind of covered on the sports scene with Affetti for... Although I did notice that Barry Robson got Affetti and Akil Wright mixed up, which was a bit of a yikes moment. But Affetti was at fault for the first one and then Wright for the second one. And I think he thought it was Affetti for both. But yeah, there was not too much to add on County. St Johnstone, on the other hand, quite interesting. Quite interesting enough to say in what is kind of not officially, but like almost officially Simo Valakari's first game in charge. Because he's been taking the team and he's been setting out the tactics, he's been training them and everything, but they've not had, the paperwork's not fully been done yet. There's been a bit of a hold up, so he couldn't be in the dugout for this one. So it was Andy Kirk again taking it as interim, but it very much had the stamp of a team that was different to what was there before at St Johnstone.
Yes.
So I'll describe. I don't know if you could have saw much of it, but I'll describe what I could see. It was essentially kind of like a diamond midfield with Smith and Holt on either side of the 4. And I think that works quite well because both of them are very industrious, mobile players.
Yes, not very good at anything else, but yeah. That's if I was going to put Jason Holt in a midfield role.
Holt is good at a 5-yard pass.
You can let this love for Jason Holt go. I did years ago. It's fine.
I said many moons ago, I think Holt's best position might be as like a Poundland Shavy, and I think I've been proven right with his career in Scottish football at Livingston, and now that he's got to St Johnstone, doing a bit similar. But him and Smith in particular, because Smith has got like boundless energy, he was just kind of getting forward to support, and I think that suits them well because they don't have a lot of width in their midfielders. So instead, they were pushing Dre Wright and Andre, particularly Wright, but Andre Raymond as well, high up the park, and Sven Sprangler was the one that was sitting back in the number 10. But what was really interesting was the front 3. So I saw this initially. I think at the time I just checked their team, like when when there was a break in play in the Hearts game, and saw that it was like Nicky Clark again is number 10. I was like, come on, when are they going to learn about this? Like Nicky Clark is a number 10, but I don't know. I think it worked quite well in this one. He would drop back into midfield when they didn't have the ball, but when he did have the ball, he was basically a number 9. And Sidibe and Kimpioka would kind of split.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of kind of fluidity to their play, and they were also good at just passing the ball through the pitch, starting for the goalie, knocking it out to the defenders, playing it in the midfield, playing it in attack. I mean, I could see that St Johnstone fans, for little I saw on social media, were delighted with how their team played, and having been subjected to Craig Levine's brand of football for a year, I could definitely see why, because they were a lot better to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I only saw the highlights of this one, but it just from seeing the team line and thinking about the attributes to the players, I mean, I think that almost suits all of them. I think that's almost, and I suppose that as part of being a good football manager is like devising a system that it suits the players that you have, and they're all, and as many players as possible are playing a role which just like gets them to do the things that they're good at. And you would sort of say like what's Nicky Clark's position now? He's like, he probably can't he can't lead a line as by himself because he's not physical enough for that. But he could sort of play as almost like a number 10, maybe. But then he's also that you want him in the box quite a lot. And then the same with Kimpioka and Sidibe. You're thinking again, would you play that? Would you really want to play either of them as like a lone striker? Not really. They're sort of almost, their skill sets are almost sort of in between being wingers and strikers. So just getting them to do that is perfect. So as a front 3, I think for where St Johnstone are at the moment, that looks quite good to me. If they can keep them all in the park, which has also been a bit of an issue with at least two of them this season. It would just be, will they be that? I mean, was that them playing that way because they were playing the other worst team in the league, and at home? Will that be something that they'll do in every game? I don't know, but it sort of feels like it's just because you're making up. You can always go that attacking with the front three if you then just have cloggers in the rest of the midfield, which is ultimately, I mean, let's be honest, that's pretty much all they've got anyway. So maybe you just play that way and hope that the front three, get you your then if Siribi and Kabioka, nothing else if they're not like an outball. So yeah, that certainly helps you get up the park at times. So I see they've just signed Barry Douglas as well, which will be
I was going to say that's some breaking news.
Yes,
St Johnstone related breaking news. Barry Douglas is now signed for the club, so that's he's 35 now.
I mean, Raymond's probably been one of their better players.
Yeah, I have to think that's got to do with just kind of squad depth and a bit of rotation going on there. Because Raymond is good, and especially if they're going to play like they did in that game with a lot of freedom down the flanks. I think you want somebody like Raymond, Barry Douglas was good at that back in the day, but like I say, 35 now, so yeah, I doubt but gives him another option.
Indeed.
Right, let's move on to another game which took place on Saturday at 3 o'clock, and that is Hearts defeated St Mirren 4-0 at Tynecastle. Goals from Kenneth Vargas, Daniel Oyegoke, what a belter that was, James Wilson and Blair Spittle. The latter two coming late on, and 3 points to start off Neil Critchley's tenure as the Hearts boss. Euan, I obviously saw this one. I would say that things were improved in many ways. Obviously, scoring goals, keeping a clean sheet. It's kind of hard to say a lot about Hearts too much, definitively, because St Mirren were absolutely minging.
Yes, that was my takeaway from watching it. Just, wow. It's not what I would... I know St Mirren haven't been great this season, but that was something else. They were absolutely terrible. So who knows if it's something to do with what happened in the week with Sean Rooney. Maybe that's giving them too much of an excuse, but I thought that was a very odd performance from St Mirren. I thought they would potentially make it quite difficult for Hearts, but they didn't at all. And a team that I sort of look at St Mirren and really quite like their squad and like the options they've got, but didn't really see any of their better attributes whatsoever at the weekend, and made it. The Hearts are you can talk about the sort of tweaks that Critchley made, and they obviously worked, but I think it probably had more to do with with how St Mirren played maybe than Hearts.
So yeah, St Mirren have in recent weeks been playing with a 4 at the back. And I think it's out of a bit of necessity and a bit of injury bad luck that obviously Robinson can't really account for. And also as well, when you move into a 4 at the back, because you have got injury problems, it doesn't help that you're starting right back coming into the season, and probably the best signing you made, you've had to sack because of alleged off the field indiscretions. I think that's the best way to put it for now. So you look at that back 4, you've got Charles Dunn. He was signed in September, so that's not ideal. Alex Gogic, good in a 3. Is he a good enough centre-back in a 2? Probably not. Marcus Fraser at right back at his age now? Nah, not really liking that either. So there's that side to it, but there's also other worrying aspects for St Mirren. They've not signed well from this point of view, like what we're seeing so far. They've not signed well at all in the summer. Ellery Balcom started the season well, so a terrific performance in Europe against Brann in the home game. He's looked poor. It looks like he's got a mistake in him every single game. Oyston Smith scored twice, that opening day win against Hibs. Hasn't really done much since. Doesn't look like much of a player. Dennis Adeniran has looked okay, I think, where he's played, but doesn't seem to be trusted that much by Robinson. Roland Aduwu hasn't really done much either, again, other than that first game against Hibs where he was quite impressive. Calvin Phillips, I think, has been all right, but then you go further forward. Kevin Van Veen looks like he's in one of these I can't be arsed with this modes. Like his performance on Saturday was very much, I could really give a toss about what happens here when, I mean, you're playing a team that's right for you to put in a kind of a performance where you take the game by the scruff of the neck like we know Van Veen could do against a side that's under pressure and low in confidence, and instead he just kind of was going through the motions. And then you're starting to look elsewhere, like, so, okay, so your new signings aren't playing well. What about the guys who last season and the season before were big players for you? Mark O'Hara, well out of form. Scott Tanser, well out of form. Mikael Mandron, nowhere near as good as he was last year. Caelan Boyd-Muntz didn't even get in the park in this game. There is... I mean, they're about to hand Stephen Robinson a new contract, and you can understand why. And I do think often we're certainly often quick to get rid of the managers after one bad spell. But are St Mirren just going to get rid of Stephen Robinson and then get rid of him at the end of this bad spell? That's what I'm kind of thinking, because there's a lot going wrong for him to save it without needing maybe the January window to make some tweaks. That's another couple of months down the line. I mean, I don't think they're going to play like as badly as they did on Saturday for the duration of it, but there's a lot of things to be concerned about if you're a St Mirren fan.
Yeah, and it's funny just taking one player out of it. I think maybe a lot of my optimism for St Mirren was just like, Sean Rooney's a good player, and then the rest of it, but as soon as you take that out, then that means you're having to play quite a few people in positions that doesn't actually suit them, and then the whole thing can fall to bits a wee bit. So, not that we're flying with Rooney in the team. So yeah, it's they obviously need to get something out of Van Veen, and they need to get him somewhere, but just giving a fuck basically. And then with him and Alessandra, if Alessandra can sustain his form from the start of the season, then I think that alone is probably enough for St Mirren to have like a trouble-free season, if not a successful one. And you might be a great regression from last season, but they wouldn't be anywhere near the sort of relegation trouble. But if they don't, then maybe it could all sort of go on top of them. I mean, Robinson was absolutely raging. Not a man that's always particularly in control of his emotions, but just he was absolutely fizzing. Probably the angriest I've seen a manager this season. Actually, I think he was kicking chairs, and he was clearly absolutely raging in his post-match presser. So yeah, that would be a concern. And it's hard to say with obviously St Johnstone, who we just covered, like they looked to be the worst team by a mile. Now maybe just a new manager bounce, a couple of tweaks, they might win a few games, and all of a sudden they're back in sort of relative safety. Ross County aren't very good as discussed, but carry a bit of a threat, and you sort of think, well, I always just think Ross County will win games you don't expect them to, and then chuck games that you think they might do all right in, like at the weekend. So I don't think there's an absolutely horrendous team in this league relative to everybody else. And I don't think, unless Hibs really spiral, I think Hibs and Hearts are sort of in false position. So I think they'll come back up. So yeah, maybe someone could be from going from sort of aiming for top six to maybe being in a relegation battle. I think it's just that kind of season where there's a few clubs in that bracket that could sort of be aiming for top six and then actually end up in relegation battle, because it's just it's just the nature of a league this tight where there aren't really absolutely horrendous teams, or they all are, depending on your point of view.
As for Hearts, I think we've kind of said it already this season about Naismith. Like it's funny how things just quickly can spiral in football, or snowball, I think is maybe the right way to put it. Like, Naismith brings in the new players initially, he seems to have a decent idea of that Rangers game, and ironically they kind of lined up very similar to they did in that Rangers game on opening day. And then he's got all these new bits, he doesn't know how to make them all fit, he's trying different things, he's rotated a bit more than he should in the early campaign. There's obviously then Europe to think about as well, and things just go from bad to worse to holy shit, I've been sacked. But you can see for this game, what's that? 1, 2, 5, 5 new signings in the summer started this contest, and they all played well. And it shows that the summer recruitment wasn't that bad. It was just the previous manager just never really got a grasp on what to do with them. So the difference in this one was Critchley went back to the 4-4-2, narrow 4-4-2, going up against like an opponent like St Mirren at Tynecastle. When I saw a narrow 4-4-2, I was like, not sure about that. That maybe seems like a bit of a recipe for disaster. However, I didn't really expect them to work as kind of fluidly with each other as they did the front four. And that's what it was for the most part. It was actually like a front four. It was more like a kind of 4-2-4 when Hearts were in possession. Danda and Spittle were kind of, they were playing fairly narrowly, but they were coming inside and feeding off of Shankland and Vargas. And obviously Vargas as well, with his pace, is able to go out to both flanks. And then you had Oyegoki and Penrice pushing forward for fullbacks. And you even though Biringime and Boateng, I look at them often and think, well, these are just a wee bit too similar. But in a match like this, where you've got so much going for you, like you've got so much kind of going on further forward, and you've also got the fullbacks pushing on, then having two defensive midfielders who you can rely on to win a tackle, to win the ball back, and when they get possession, just to find the Hearts man, it all worked very nicely. Will it work going forward against other opponents? Not entirely certain about that, but it certainly did in this one, and I very much was not only pleased with how they played in that aspect, but also encouraged that there is this attacking quality which we thought was there for a lot of the season. Finally seems like it's turned up. I think we still could have created more chances. I think there was a bit of a period in the game between Boateng's goal and the two late goals from Wilson and Spittle, where I think other than a Danda chance, where he went front post as opposed to going across, I don't think it really created too much, and that was concerning me a little bit. But overall, obviously much improved. And Blair Spittle is, from looking like he was definitely going to be a bad signing like a month ago, is now starting to look like a very good signing, because he was great against Aberdeen and he was great again in this one. And what's really endearing him to Hearts fans is that not only has he got the ability to do what he did and score from outside the penalty area and to create chances, but he also works very hard, which does help make up for the fact he is an incredibly slow footballer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know it worked, but I sort of struggle to see how an attack where three of the players are as physically deficient as Danda, Spittle and Shankland can work together. So it worked today, or worked on Saturday rather. I'm not sure that's a long-term.
And Kenneth Vargas found the back of the net because he didn't have to think about it.
Yes. Yeah. And him being the only legs would be questionable. So I don't think, I mean, it might suit Hearts in games like that, where it's a team that's probably coming thinking that a draw wouldn't be too bad here. At Tynecastle, it might suit the games where Hearts will have the majority of the ball, but I don't think that will work particularly well. I think that's if Hearts summer recruitment there was an issue with it. It was just that I didn't think any of the players looked absolutely terrible, apart from maybe some of the guys we've not seen that much of so far. But what we have seen is bad. Yes,
Salazar taking to Instagram as soon as the team lines were announced.
Yeah, so that doesn't look like it's going to end particularly well. But beyond that, I think Jan Danda is a good footballer. It's just, is he a good football player for Hearts, and is he a good football player for Hearts given the other players they've got? And I still think there are big question marks there. And so I would say I'd like to see if he goes with that setup against Hibs next week. I think I actually think that could suit Hibs quite well. So, but again, performance, but then Hibs might just find a way to Hibs it. So that's, the performances might be irrelevant, but I don't know if it would really suit a game like that. So that would be interesting to see. And there's a European game in between that. So we'll see if it is sustainable, but certainly, based on that performance in certain games, it can work.
Right, let's get to our last match, and that took place at Fir Park on Saturday afternoon. and that was Dundee beating Motherwell by 1-0 with a goal by Lyle Cameron. Euan, I watched this game. I'd rather I hadn't done, but I did. It was...
Didn't seem great.
No, it wasn't great, and it's like, it was... I kind of had a bit of this in the St Johnstone game as well. Kind of getting to that period of the year where it's getting that kind of low winter sun. It just kind of really... And they had it in the Kelly Rangers game. The kind of messes with like the kind of picture. And also...
I'll add that to the excuses.
Try to decipher the Motherwell players with that sun, which is like, oh, fuck no. It's like, is that Dabrowski? Is that Halliday? Is that Miller? I don't know. He's wearing a Motherwell shirt.
You could tell, my takeaway from watching I saw this game is that I've just become such like a Lennon Miller fanboy, and I can I know it's him because I just think even when he's making a mistake, he just does it in an aesthetically pleasing way to me. Like obviously he gives away the ball for the goal, but he wins it really nicely beforehand, and he plays what should be a good pass. It just gets intercepted, and it's just like I think if I was a Motherwell fan, I'd be like head over heels with him as a player, and I'd be like, oh, don't worry about that, Lennon. That's all right. But just even like everything he does, I just think he does it with such a sort of technical quality that's really pleasing in the eye. I think I've watched Lyrical before about how he scored a penalty, so I think I'm just like at that stage now with him that if he plays a 5-yard pass, I think it's amazing. he's the one that he does. I think he does stand out because he doesn't look like most footballers in Scottish football look.
No, he played well. Oxborough had another couple of, decent enough saves, nothing that you kind of out of the ordinary. And I thought Liam Gordon played well. Other than that, I thought Motherwell, I'd imagine that Motherwell fans or Motherwell themselves, I don't remember watching the post-match stuff, so I don't know what Kettlewell said. But I can imagine them thinking that due to the pressure they put Dundee under in the last 20 minutes, that they deserved a point out of this. And there's something in that. But at the same time, I felt like for the first hour, I thought Dundee were clearly the better side. And maybe not in yes, in terms of like territory and kind of in possession and stuff like that, but also just in the like just playing football. Like they just look like a better football team. Like they just builded it like through the stages from defence, midfield, attack. They seem to have like more coherence about what they were doing. They just look like a better football team. Motherwell were like a rabble for like the first hour of this game. Kettlewell was trying different things. They weren't working. They went with the 3-5-2. Miller was part of the midfield three, because I think we would want him to be. But Kettlewell wasn't happy with the first half, which was fair enough. I think it maybe was a wee bit too quick to take off Stamatolopoulos. But
well
go
done.
with that.
Apstam is what we could be calling him, but yeah.
Yep. Because while he didn't start well, I think towards the end of the half, he was coming on to a game a bit and starting to make himself a bit of a threat in the final third. So I was surprised that he was taken off. Robinson, no, I completely understand that. He just played like Zach Robinson's played in just about every single Premiership game he's had in his career to date.
Badly.
So then he changed the formation, put Miller back into number 10 on the right, with Tony Watt came on and played on the left, and Moses Abiy is the focal point up front. But for the first 10-15 minutes of the second half, Dundee just had them hemmed into their own like 30 yards for their own goal, basically. And looked like it was going to be Dundee extending the lead rather than Motherwell getting back into it. Then he went a bit gung-ho, and that started to work. And it kind of put Dundee on the back foot a bit. And we'll get to Tory Docherty soon enough and the changes he made, but I think even he kind of started to get a bit nervous because he finished out the game with a 5-4-1, which is what they were playing for about the last 10-15 minutes of the encounter. So I think he knew that the tide had changed. But when he went gung-ho, it was basically like a 4-2-4. He put Miller alongside Drakowski and had Tavares on one wing, Maswarizi on the other wing, and then Abiy and Watt up front together. So basically 4 forwards. And they started, and with Miller able to also help kind of pull the strings for the centre, they did start to put Dundee under some real pressure and created some chances that they probably should have done better with. But before then, I did feel that Dundee were the better side. Before I talk about what I saw from Dundee, anything you want to say about Motherwell?
No, obviously that was probably a good run of form to an end, potentially.
I don't think Motherwell are a top 6 side. I'm saying that
No.
now.
No.
I think they'll be fine. I thought that going into the season they might be 10th. I think they'll probably be better than that. But I'm really not impressed with them at all in this one.
Yeah, no, I just, and you have to assume that January will have a big bearing on it because they will presumably lose a best player in Miller, but in return for a big sack full of cash. So that could, that could go a couple of ways.
To spend on more Yair Tavares. Why is he wearing 90, by the way? That's what something I wanted to ask. Why are you wearing number 90?
Yes, but it's a very Jair Tavares number.
What do you think you're crap? Why have you picked a crap player's number?
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, and I suppose like Doherty's changes betrayed how desperate he was. And I thought his comments after the game as well were similar. I think he looks like a very relieved man. I think he's probably felt under pressure for the first time, maybe, in his Dundee.
Yeah, definitely.
Managerial career, full stop, I suppose. And he looked. You sort of referenced the fact that he'd been getting a bit of criticism. So I think you can sort of tell that was getting to him, and you probably maybe slightly over-egged how defensive he was being because he was just determined not to lose late or lose a late goal again, which also
he brought in Portales, but he played him in centre mid.
Yeah, that's yeah. I don't think that would work too often, but obviously it worked on this occasion, sort of. So I mean, again, I think actually Dundee, Motherwell, to me, these are the teams that will make up the mid-table. I don't think either of them are top 6 material this season. But I think they also should be too good to go down. So they'll be somewhere between 7th and 9th, I suspect. Well,
before we finish, I'll say some nice things about Dundee. I thought the change of goalkeeper made complete sense. John McCracken, Jesus, his career.
What a rollercoaster.
I know. It's called up to the Scotland squad. And then, immediately his form goes in the tank. And then really can't be many players who come back from Scotland duty and then are like, okay, you're dropped, mate.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a Dundee player.
Scotland's second best goalkeeper, but also Dundee's, it would appear. Which is very odd.
In defence, Billy Cometio was played in the centre of the back three. I don't remember seeing him play there this season. He might have done, I've just forgotten. But that seemed to suit him. I don't think he's particularly great on the ball or anything, but he was winning just about everything that came near him. Clark Robertson on the left of the three was impressed with. He just looked like a centre half that used to play left back who's been around for a number of years. He was composed on the ball, and him and Larkesh, I thought, worked very well down that left hand side. One interesting wrinkle for the centre of the park. So it was initially expected. We talked about this before on the podcast, that after Luke McCowan was sold to Celtic, you were going to have Luke Cameron, and then you were going to have Silla, who was obviously suspended for this one. But then it would either be Mulligan or Braybrook alongside them too. Well, both of them were on the bench and never came off it. Instead, without Silla, they had Fraser. Scott Fraser is the deep-lying midfielder. Obviously a very different type of player, but it worked well because he just was his passing was just great throughout.
Yeah,
good touches, good passing. Yeah, technically adept. Always seemed to find space, seemed to find his man. And Finlay Robertson was there just as a kind of dog's body to do the kind of the unseen work and to just keep things simple and to just be, to work hard. And that kind of I felt freed up Cameron to have probably one of his better games so far this season or so far since McCowan left. He was always bright, always driving Dundee forward. Very nice goal as well, really nice finish where I think a lot of other players would try to put it in the opposite corner. He just reverses it. Very, very cool, very calm. Simon Murray was not good in this one, but his energy at the kind of point of attack is always going to cause opponents problems. But him and Main, I don't think were quite too effective. But I thought it was a midfield area for me where Dundee really won this one. And it was funny watching it, thinking especially because Motherwell at home, thinking how were Motherwell the team ahead in the league table? It's still ahead in the league table. It didn't really make any sense as you were watching it. And I would, based on that, especially if Dundee can keep the defence as tight as it looked in this one compared to what it's been like for the most part, then I would fancy Dundee to be the side that finishes ahead of the two in the league this season. But that they have to continue it because up until this game they were just so bad at conceding goals.
Yeah. When's Shaughnessy back? He's out long term.
Oh, he's out for the pretty much done his knee.
Well, that would be. I mean, he would make a difference, but I think Robertson is actually a really solid signing for Dundee, and just like a solid citizen. So he should help.
Yeah, I would say so. Right, Euan, I think that'll do us. We've done an hour and 20 minutes.
Well, then, yeah, but it was an action-packed weekend, to be fair. So
it really was. There was a lot to talk about there. So thank you to everybody for listening. If you want to hear more from us, the best way to do so is to sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/Terrace Podcast. There's always loads of stuff. We try to, every single week, put up at least 5 podcasts on there, in addition to the 2 on the main feed, and sometimes even more than 5. So you definitely get your money's worth and to access everything. It's just £5 a month, and that doesn't get you a lot these days, but it gets you a lot of bonus Scottish football content is what it does. But that'll do us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
And thank you once again, and we'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.